The Houston Rockets were eliminated in Game 7, leaving many Rockets fans now to question what the future of the team is. With reports that they could be looking to go star hunting this offseason, who's on their trade block? We got one player in Jalen Green who definitely should be on his way out. We're going to talk about it all, plus more, right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content today, y'all. And the Houston Rockets, man. Unfortunately, the Houston Rockets just, they didn't have enough against the Golden State Warriors, man. Shout out to them for winning 2 games in a row after going down 3-1, but they ultimately just did not have enough to go overcome the veteran, ship of the Golden State Warriors. After this game now, you had Anfernee Simons basically admit that Draymond Green punked him. It's just a bad thing when you look at all that. You got pending contract situations going on with Fred VanVleet. But one of the things that really stood out, right, and there was a lot. I want to be clear here. I'm not blaming this whole entire series on one player. I think that for you to lose like that, it's more than just one player that has to be the reason why, right? But Jalen Green is a player that's on the Houston Rockets, and you look at what he's done or did not do, and he has absolutely disappointed, man. I listen, and I don't think there's any other way around that personally. You look at his averages, right? He had more single-digit games than anything else in that series, man. It's unfortunate because he's a player that has shown a lot of potential and flashes at time, but unfortunately at this point in time, he's not nearly enough to be consistent. And with the Houston Rockets winning over 50 games this year, them potentially pushing all their chips on the table and wanting to bring in a star now to where they can wait until Amen Thompson's ready to take over that role, then, that may be what they're going to do. Despite averaging 21 points per game, he was 28th overall in the league in scoring this offseason. Despite all of that, when it came and when the lights were on, he didn't do anything for you. He really didn't do anything for you. He had a 38-point game in game 2. And other than that, it was 4 games of single-digit scoring, 2 games of scoring 11 and 12, and he averaged 13 points per game. That's it. On 37% shooting, 29% shooting from 3, Jalen Green didn't give you much of anything. And with the pursuit that the Houston Rockets are expected to be on this offseason, with going out and trying to find themselves a star, Jalen Green is the one that a lot of people are looking at and saying, yeah, he's probably who we need to move. Now, to go against that, he's 23 years old. He won't turn 24 until 2/3 of the way through the season next year. This is his first season in the playoffs like this. Are people being too hard on Jalen Green? Maybe, but I'll tell you this, is that if you want to make that move now, if you want to make that move this summer to go all in, Jalen Green's probably the one, because other teams may look at it as well and say, hey, this is a player that maybe we can look to cultivate. If you're moving on a star, maybe you can look to develop him, get him more consistent, things like that. Maybe you can. I think there's a reason why the Houston Rockets did not wait to give Jalen Green a full 5-year extension. I think part of that is because, listen, you don't know who or what Jalen Green's going to be. He has a player option for 2027-28. That means that he has 3 years left on his contract after this season, 2 possibly, which he's probably going to pick up that option unless he's opting out to re-sign with that team and get more years on that. But ultimately, this is just Jalen Green failed this team. He did. And that just is what it is when it comes down to it. And I think ultimately, they're going to have to try to make a decision on what to do with that. But, you've heard things like Jabari and Jalen. They're the ones that you can look to move to get a star, maybe even Tari Eason, right? Depending on what you want to do there. But if the Houston Rockets are truly going star hunting this offseason, then they're going to have to figure something out. They're going to have to figure something out, and they're going to have to figure it out pretty quickly, right? Now, they have other options as well. I want to be clear there. You got Fred VanVleet, who we'll talk about here in a moment, that he has a team option for $44 million next season, and the deadline on that is not till well after the draft. It's not till June 29th, right? So they can do some things there where you can even make a move during the draft or whatever else to make a move for him or move off of him. And there's a possibility of that, right? They have some flexibility there that they can do if they want to using Fred VanVleet's contract. Well, we'll get on Fred's comments on that here in a second. But I think when you look at Jalen, you want to take advantage of, his youth. You want to take advantage of the fact that he doesn't have an extremely long amount of time when it comes down to it. But I think that it's all said and done. Jalen Green needs to get ready to pack his bags because it's time. It is what it is. This team is going to go star hunting. And I don't think it's about a timeline. You guys may know I co-host Locked On NBA Monday through Friday with Matt Moore and Doug Branson. And Matt said, well, maybe they're looking for a star that fits their timeline. I don't think they have to do that. I think that Kevin Durant actually makes sense for them, right? Because, in whatever time he has left, by the end of that, you're hoping that Amen Thompson is the guy in Houston. And so if that's how the Houston Rockets view it as well, this is their opportunity to put their chips in, to use what assets they have, both for trade assets and with young players on decent contracts, to go out and get themselves a guy, right? And hopefully they can do that. But the other part in that we talked about as well is Fred VanVleet. And, of course, he was asked about it after the game as far as his pending free agency and future with the Houston Rockets. And he said this: I know I'm a little new here, but I'm never going to speak about contract stuff publicly. I handle the business behind closed doors, but obviously put my heart and soul into this, and this is where I want to be. It's definitely a family situation. I got a lot of love for the coaching staff, Raphael Stone, and the Ferreira family. When I had my free agent meeting 2 years ago, it was never a short-term vision. It was a long-term goal. So we're on track. We're on schedule. It's a tough way to lose in the season, but my mind is very far away from contract stuff right now. We'll get to that when it's time. And you got to respect Fred VanVleet had himself a series, right? You look at the two games, especially that the Houston Rockets won back-to-back after going down 3-1, and Fred was a huge part of that, both offensively and defensively, stepping up at times for this Houston Rockets team. But it's all business, right? And so the Houston Rockets, while he averaged 14 points per game on the season, he brings that veteran leadership, all those type of things. All that's true. Not taking anything away from that with Fred VanVleet when it comes to that, right? But you have to look to improve your roster where you can. And sometimes you have to make some tough decisions when it comes to getting to that ultimate goal. And that's what the Houston Rockets are going to have to ask themselves. They're going to have to really survey what's out there on the market for them, survey and try to determine what's there that makes sense and fits for what they want to be and who they want to go after. And ultimately, that's the decision when it comes down to it. They lost to a veteran team. And I still look at the Houston Rockets as a team that's ahead of schedule right now based off, last season prior to this, they had to finish the season on an almost historic run just to even flirt with making the play-in. Now, they were the second seed in the Western Conference. You came up against a tough Golden State Warriors team that has those veterans that have been battle-tested, all those type of things, and it is what it is, right? But now you have an opportunity between assets and everything else that you have to really make a move, to go out there, and to me, Jalen Green may very well turn into a star. He may. If he can get consistent, he very well may turn into a star. But we already got Amen Thompson there, who's already looking like a guy who's more consistent. He just got to get a jump shot. I'm willing to bet on his defense. He got the killer instinct. He has everything that you're looking for there, right? He just has to develop over time. I'm looking for a guy to help support him, so then that way, when he's ready to take over that mantle as the team's best player, which may come sooner rather than later, you're ready to go, right? And you can compete over that time for that. That's my personal opinion. Jalen Green is a talented player, make no mistake about it. I'm not somebody who looks at players and tries because they go through some struggles, label them as trash or whatever else, but he's a flawed player. And he's a player that, despite having all the ability to score in the world, he's not the best shooter, right? He's not that. He needs to be ball dominant basically to be the most effective. Him and Anfernee Simons kind of worked out the chemistry as best as you would hope they could this season, but there's still some long-term fit questions there. And so because of that, I look at Jalen Green and shout out to you. You've averaged over 20 points per game 2 out of your 4 years in the league so far. He's a guy that has, like I said, potential out the wazoo. But I'm looking at a team that won 52 games. I'm looking at what can help us get over the hump then and now is the early as next season, and the Houston Rockets have everything that they need to go out there and pursue some things. Question is what will they? They're going to have to ask themselves some tough decisions. They're going to have to make it sooner rather than later, and we'll see what the Houston Rockets do, man, because overall, I love so much of this team. I love this team. I had them picked to beat the Golden State Warriors. I was wrong there. The veteranship took over when it comes down to it, rightfully so. But this is a team that, yeah, even with the contracts that they have, they're still well below the second tax apron of $16 million. So this is their time. This is their time to go in. And, we'll see if they end up doing that, man. We will see what happens with the Houston Rockets this offseason and see if they make a big name, a big trade. And it could be one of the two guys we talked about. It could be Fred VanVleet's contract. You trade and the other team could waive his contract if they're just looking at a salary dump. Could be Jalen Smith. Could be Jabari. Could be Tara Eason. With some of their picks that they have coming up here in Brooklyn's pick, things like that, they got some assets that they can look to move and maneuver it, and we'll just see what the Houston Rockets do. But from a team that could be looking to acquire a star to a player that could be the missing piece for another team, the Orlando Magic have been rumored to be interested in Anfernee Simons with the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is how would they get that done? Now, we know that the Orlando Magic need scoring, right? And they still have young players in Franz and in Paolo who are still developing themselves, right? Now they had some things that held this team back this year, injuries, all type of things that happened with this team. You had Jalen Suggs who had a really good season, but then wasn't available in the playoffs. Things like that happen, and Orlando Magic have to look at themselves and ask them, how we finish this season, is that how we can really be for the entirety of next season? How close are we to being able to compete with the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers? I know they didn't make it far in the playoffs. I understand that. I get that. But this team wasn't whole then, and they have to ask themselves that and look at that and question how close can they get, right? And how much could a scorer like Anfernee Simons, who's is a talented scorer, but hasn't he's not the it player or anything like that. He's not a number one, right? Can he fit in what you're doing here in Orlando? And what is the cost to get him there? That's the biggest question that they had. But, for what it's worth, that's been the talk around when it came down to. This one comes from Jake Fisher and Mark Stein that wrote this. When Damian Lillard was on the trade block in Portland before the 2023-24 season, league sources say there were more than a few rival teams, as well as Lillard's camp, that wondered whether the Orlando would be joining the trade pursuit for him. As new offseason beckons, another Trailblazer has been increasingly projected as an Orlando Magic target. Lillard's former Blazer backcourt mate, Anfernee Simons. The 25-year-old is an Orlando native and would certainly blend in nicely and from a timeline perspective alongside Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. So that's what it comes down to, right? Anfernee Simons is a talented player as well, and he's a guy. But, going in on that, it's a $20 million contract that he's on, $27 million actually next year. And so when you look at the Magic potentially making a move for that, what would they have to give, right? And unfortunately, the player that they just acquired in KCP may be the best avenue that they have to get there, right? And that may be what you have to give up to get that done. A mixture of maybe KCP, Anthony Black, maybe, right? If they're willing to give up Anthony Black, is what you could use to get there. Now they have some other options at their disposal as well. Gary Harris, if the Portland Trail Blazers are willing to take that back, right? But then what are you giving them draft compensation wise? If you're not giving them another young player, which the Portland Trail Blazers even said they are aiming to try to make the playoffs, but they're also in asset acquisition mode, right? They want to get through this transaction period and see what they can get. The benefit is the Orlando Magic have all their own first round picks from 2026 all the way to 2032. They own all their first round picks. They also have Denver's first round pick this year, right? If it does not fall between 6 and 30, which it will not. So they got Denver's first round pick as well. And so that's what you're looking at for, right? The Orlando Magic have some flexibility with draft assets, but in using those draft assets, you got to make sure the player that you're acquiring is going to help you get over that hump. Now, if they are sending out KCP, it doesn't really send them closer to the second tax apron. They are projected to have about $8 million in space in that second tax apron. But Anfernee Simons does make more than KCP, so you'd want to offset that with, like I said, Anthony Black or something else to get you a little bit of that room. But other than that, they can then bring back most of their team as it stands right now, right? They got restricted free agents in Mac McClung and Queen that they got to make some decisions on. I don't think those are hard decisions. But other than that, they can bring the majority of their team back, right? They have team options on Mo Wagner. He's going to come back. I don't think they're going to move off of Mo Wagner. They got team options on Corey Joseph and Caleb Houston as well. So this is a Magic team that has some flexibility. If they want to go out there and make a move for Anfernee Simons, they can make it done. The question that I think is does Anfernee Simons bring everything that you need from a scoring and a three-point shooting perspective to help your team? offense has been the thing that's held this Orlando Magic team back. Besides having talented offensive players, which they do, they need more offensively, especially in a league where offense has become so hugely important and keeps becoming more and more important as things go on, right? So health and more offense. That's what the Orlando Magic are hoping for next season. And Anfernee Simons could be a pathway for them to get there with his ability to score over 20 points, with his ability as a shooter to help stretch that floor. Defensively, he's not bringing a whole lot for you there. So you better